Hi there, Jonny here from JonnyLipshamStudios.co.uk and welcome to a very special video. Yes, Studio One 5 is finally here, and I gotta tell you folks, it's been so hard for me to keep this one a secret because I have been using Studio One 5 for a wee while, shall we say, and it is absolutely mind-blowing what I'm about to show you. There is an awful lot of stuff in here, a lot of which is feature requests from the user community, so folks like you and me putting in our feature requests over at answers.presonus.com. There are a lot of those in here in the new version of Studio One 5. But as you can see straight away, there is also some awesome and spectacular innovation that the guys in Hamburg have undertaken. So this is really the best place to start when starting to look at this version of Studio One, because the start page has been given just a little bit of a facelift, and I'm sure that there is more to come in the future, probably, I would think, with this start page, because the start page has by and largely been untouched for 10 years practically. So there are a few extra buttons here, and I'm going to show you what these are all about. So we have the new song button. We've had that one for a long time, but they've just added some details to it. New project, master and release, they've added again. But then we have this guy here, new show, rehearse and perform, and you are probably straight away making the connection as to what this might be. And I'm going to unpack this for you in just a little while. Now, I'm going to tell you right from the start with this video that I am only going to be scratching the very, very barest of the surface of surfaces with this version of Studio One 5. It would take me a very, very, very long time to go into all the ins and outs and all the details of everything, because there are 75 brand new features in Studio One 5. And so I could be here for a very long time. So here's what's going to happen. This video is going to present you with an overview. And as I say, scratching the surface and just giving you the highlights of some of the bigger things that are here. And then I will be doing a series of live stream shows on Sunday nights at 6 p.m. Central Time, right here on this channel, like I normally do, except they will be devoted to unpacking some of these features a little bit more and answering some of your questions that you will undoubtedly have with Studio One version 5. So here we go. Let's dive into it, and I'm gonna save the best for last. I'm gonna get to the show page, which is what this is here, and we've got a new button at the top here. I'm gonna get to this towards the end of this video because it is gonna totally blow you away with what we can do with Studio One and live performing now. It's pretty spectacular. All right, so start page has been given a facelift. We've got these extra new buttons and all of that, and there are some new demos and tutorials which you'll be able to check out, some great new demo songs which you'll be able to check out as well. So I have a couple of songs pulled up here, and I'm going to take you through some of the features. So let's get into that. So let's get open this first song. So this is my song Dig Myself a Hole that I released earlier this year. And I'm using this because this shows you the full mix of you with a reasonably large session involved, 20 or so channels in this session. And immediately the first thing that you are going to see is this guy over here. Yes, we have a listen bus. What is the listen bus? The listen bus enables you to have a separate master output. And what this means is that you can have one master output for your control room and another master output for, maybe your talent, maybe your artist or something like that. So it is very, very cool. I'm very excited by this particular feature for all the things that it can do. So essentially what this is it's an alternative to monitoring solo signals through the main output channel. And so it gives you a dedicated listening bus, which is available for monitoring solo signals through a separate output channel. So when this is activated, and I'm going to show you how to do that in just a second, a dedicated output for control room monitors or headphones is available with volume control independent from the main output. which is what this guy is here. In addition, a second option is available here to send solo signals to the listen bus. This guy here. And when activated, initiating solo on any channel on any channel monitors the solo signal through the listen bus and the connected output while keeping the main output channel and other cue mixes unaffected. So if you want to have a completely separate mix, and let's say you're recording your talent in another room and you want to have a separate monitor mix for your control room, and you want to be able to solo the guitar, for example, you know, you decide you want to tweak whilst the vocalist is recording in your vocal booth, you want to go and tweak the guitar a little bit, or you want to listen just to her voice, and so you can check the reverb levels and stuff. You can do all of that without affecting what is going through his or her headphones, which is a very cool little feature. So the listen bus may also be used to provide a control room with a separate audio feed independently from the main output. But there's also another thing you can do with this. Another potential use case would be like running room calibration with a room calibration plugin and one of those room microphones. And you can put that through the listen bus, so you're keeping your main output completely unaffected and separate from that. It has a dedicated pre-fader listen, and you can you can have audio signals going through this listen bus in pre-fader mode, and so those signals will then be monitored pre-fader and pre-pan. So with this disengaged, the solo signals are monitored after the fader and after pan. So that's what all of these controls are for here. So this makes the listen bus active, and I'll set that up in a wee while. But yeah, so we got this new output here. This is very, very cool. And the way you get to it is through the wrench over here. And there's now this option here, enable listen bus. And then if you click here for solo through listen bus, then it means that anything that is soloed here is now going to go and be soloed through the listen bus, which is very, very cool. And as I say, you can select how that's going to work. So basically, to toggle that pre-fader on and off, it's this button here. I know it kind of doesn't really look like very much, but if you hover over it, the little thing comes up there saying pre-fader listen, and when it's lit up, it's engaged, and when it's disengaged, when it's not lit up, it's not engaged, and it's in normal after fader mode. All right, so what's the other things that we've got here? I'm going to take you over to another song. Okay, so the next thing we've got here is, in this song here, I've got open up this Aux channel. Aux channels are really, really cool. And basically, this can be used to add an external audio source of any kind directly into the mixer without the need for a track in the arranger view, which is extremely cool. So for example, if you've got like an external hardware synthesizer or a workstation keyboard or a digital piano, normally these would require like a mixing desk, and then you'd have to route that into a channel. Well, now you can just connect it to your interface via available inputs, and you have this channel available just to run just that sound or just that piece of hardware, which is extremely cool. But the thing with this is, like with Pipeline, if you have hardware gear routed through Pipeline into Studio One, when you do a render or a mix down of your song, you are forced to do it in real time, because the pipeline has to be processed in real time. So it is with this aux channel here. So to get to an aux channel, to add an aux channel to your mixer view, just kind of like with adding a bus, you right click, and here is this new option here, add aux channel. So yeah, so you can add bus channel, effects channel, VCA, and now you can add this aux channel. And by the way, just right clicking will enable the listen bus. You don't necessarily need to go over here to the wrench and do it, which is very convenient. And they've also added in the IO setup here to this right click menu as well, which I think is very cool, very useful. But yeah, if you want to add an aux channel, that's what you do. You just go and you go add aux channel, and it just pops up straight away, which is very useful. And the cool thing about this is you can process your external synthesizer just with any plugins that you want. And I'm going to get onto the plugins in just a minute, because some of you have probably already noticed that they look a little bit different. So I'm only going to just give you a quick overview of what those look like in just a second. So aux channels can be mapped to external MIDI devices such as a hardware synthesizer and monitor station, so you have complete integration. For added convenience, the external instruments are now listed in the browser and instruments tab as well, so they can be added with drag and drop. So if you've got them available, then you can add them through this external instruments tab here. I don't have one. I don't have an external synthesizer, guys, so it's not going to show up anything here for me. But if you've got them, added into Studio One, then you will have them available, and you can just drag and drop, and it will create the aux channel for you, doing it that way. But as I said, you need to add the aux channel first, and then assign them to the hardware inputs. That's what you need to do that. So they work really, really well. The other thing I can tell you about is that Studio One 5 Professional now supports 64-bit recording, which is pretty awesome. So that's 64-bit floating point wave format. So if you have like a 32-bit, an audio interface with 32-bit resolution, then this is going to be perfect for that. So now the maximum recording and processing precision now reaches 64-bit, 384 kilohertz, which is pretty amazing, pretty outstanding. Now that's obviously something I can't demonstrate here for you, because on YouTube it's not gonna show up. You're not gonna get any of the benefit of it. All right, so there's a few other things for us to look at. In fact, as I said, there are 75 new features. So it's pretty spectacular. And so I want to try and get through some of the big ones here as I can. So the next thing we have here, and I'm going to switch views away from the mixer and back to the arranger view. And I'm going to show you something that has actually been a personal feature request of mine for a very long time. And I'm really excited to be able to bring this to you. See this presence track here? This is a bass track, and I just haven't labeled it as such. I probably should have, but I haven't. So if I now double click this part, and you'll see that the note view automatically opens up, which is great. This is kind of what we want, but there's a whole bunch of other lanes here. But this is not quite what I want to get to just yet. I'm going to come back to these, so keep your mind on these. Keep those in the back of your mind just now. If I go over to the top left here, we have the piano view, we have the drum view, but now we also have score view. Yes, we have notation inside of Studio One for the first time, which is pretty awesome. So this is like a score editor, and so when I perform this bass part, it now shows up in this score editor, and I can edit it using all of this symbology. Some of this is kind of brought over from Notion, but this is not Notion inside of Studio One. Let me just say that again. This is not Notion inside of Studio One. This is kind of elements of Notion brought over into Studio One, but it is not Notion now fully integrated into Studio One. Absolutely not. Who knows if and when that will ever happen, but certainly this is a great step that I'm really pleased to see. So we've got like a whole range of musical symbols that we can use, and we've got note values and rest values, and we've got full access to the action here, so we can fill with rests, and these are all grayed out at the moment because I only have a bass part here. But if I selected note values, I could show you making custom tuplets, which would be like quintuplets, septuplets, non-tuplets. That's the word I'm looking for. And you can switch the staff as well. So if you have like multiple staffs in your song, so you have like various treble staffs and a bass staff and a drum staff, you can switch between them all, and you can transpose. So those are all useful little actions that you've got available here. And I'm sure over time, all of this score view will be developed more and more, further and further. But it works pretty well. I'm just going to play this little bit here, and you can kind of watch this bass part as it goes along. If you can read notation, then you have a distinct advantage. We're in bass clef, we're in the key of G, and it even gives you the tempo marking, which is pretty cool. Check this out. Let me just turn that off. Alright, so there you go. So that was the full bass part, all 12 bars. Okay, so this is really, really cool and very exciting to be able to have this and to be able to grab a note and move it wherever I need to, change the rhythms, whatever I need to do with this particular part. But this is pretty spot on to what I've actually played. It's pretty accurate, actually. So let's close out that. And I'm going to come down to this acoustic guitar part, and I'm going to double click this guy. And here you have this acoustic guitar part, but this is not what I want to look at. I want to look at this acoustic guitar part in the regular view. And there's a reason why I want to do that. I'm going to expand this a little bit. And I'm going to scroll that down a little bit so you can actually see the notes. Because we now have a dedicated key switch lane. And we also have this section here, which I'll explain in just a minute. But this section here, it gives you a lane for note controller, key switches, modulation, pitch bend, and aftertouch. So modulation, pitch bend, and aftertouch have always been there. The additions really here are these two here, note controller and key switches. So let's start with key switches. Key switches are extremely cool, and they are available in most instruments. Most of the Presence XT instruments have various key switches for them now. Quite a lot of them do. And certainly the Presonus Symphonic Orchestra has an abundance of key switches. And the cool thing is now that you can actually decide when your key switches are going to be. And you can record them in as well. If you're wanting to record them in real time, you can record them in and use the key switches section of your controller keyboard and change them. And then you can come and kind of like smarten up the editing as to when they start and when they stop or when they change. Or you can do it after the fact, like I've done here. I played in a couple of bars of this, and then I duplicated it to the full kind of 12 bars length here. And then I just went and grabbed some of these quite randomly. So how did I do that? Well, you click here, and this key switch selector opens up, and you've got open, hammer on, deads, and then you've got this slide harmonic one, you've got slides, you've got play effects. Basically, whatever is available for the particular instrument that you are using will show up on your key switch selector, and then you can just select it and you can change it. So this one I've got as deads, but let's say I wanted to make this one something completely different. Let's say this one. I don't know what this one does, but we will check it out. So let's solo this track. So we're playing harmonics right here. So when we get to bar 5, it'll change. Now there's obviously no sound effect mapped to this section here. So let's change this to, let's change that to open. So it should behave normally. Now we go to hammer on, back to open, and let's make this one here, this one. Okay, so let's go back to here. All right, so that's kind of how that works. And so you can edit these after the fact, or you can record them in and then come back into this editor and tidy up how long each of these key switches lasts and changes for. All right, so moving on to this bottom one, a note controller and different types of pressure, pitch, and timbre. What is this all about? Well, this is pretty big, folks. And this has been a feature request for a long time. And I'm glad it's finally here. But this is support for MPE, which is extremely exciting. For those of you that have got one of those Rolly C boards, this is going to be great for you guys to be able to get your fingers into and to be able to edit it. I think you're going to love this one. So basically what this gives you the ability to do is to, I mean, I don't have one of those. I don't have a Rolly C board or Rolly blocks or that Lin instrument. I don't have any of those in my studio. But if you have one, get stuck into this. Get checking this particular lane out here, and you can, it adds, as I say, adds support for what you can do on the Rolly C board that you currently on Studio One 4 could not do, but now you can do in Studio One 5, and you can edit all of this section. I'd love to be able to show you this in more detail, but I don't have a device that will do the job, unfortunately. But yes, just so that you guys that have a Rolly, this is in here. So Rolly blocks, C board, and the Lin instrument, I forget what that's called, but yeah, support for that is now available. All right, so let's come out of the editor. And we'll move on to a few of the other things. Let's open up the mixer here. And I'm going to show you some of the changes that have been made to the effects. And some of them are pretty already apparent. So if I go to the native effects, and I'm going to start with the ones that have a brand new kind of vintage look to them. So the analog delay here has had a significant facelift. And the other thing that you'll notice here is, notice how my channel here is yellow, and the GUI for all of the effects will now have this yellow header. And so, and that's just for the ones that are on this channel. If I were to open up, let's say, the Pro EQ on this guitar channel, look what happens to the color. It's completely different. The header is completely different, but notice how the Pro EQ is very, very different, and I'm going to come on to that in just a second. So let's go back to the analog delay, and you can see that it's actually been made to look a little bit retro, maybe 1960s, 1970s, and I think it personally looks fantastic. You've got some new options with the width here and the motor, and the waveforms for the LFO. You've got some new ones here, so you've got a saw one here, which is very cool. And then of course you've got your dry wet, and you can lock that. And your width here, you can swap it over, you can ping pong it, you can sum it, you can do all sorts of things here. And the motor is really, really, really cool as well. And you've got some color, you've got a high cut, low cut, and this state space model drive. Now this is very, very cool. This adds a little bit of tape saturation to the delay, which adds a really, really fantastic effect to the delay. So definitely go check this out. There are a few of our effects here that have the state space modeled drive input into them now. So they are very cool. Let's move on to the rotor. The rotor actually looks like a Leslie, which is awesome. I love what they've done with this. And again, you've got the state space model drive going in now, which is great. And you've got some controls for the amp, for the horn and the cue of the horn. And then you've got miking positions, distance, balance, and spread. And you can adjust the trim of the horn speed and the woofer speed. And then you've got your overall controller, which actually looks exactly like it does on a real Hammond, by the way, folks. This is your switch to switch it from fast to slow. And the cool thing about the Leslie speaker, which is what this visually simulates, is that what makes the Hammond sound really, really unique is that when you switch it over to fast, it takes a couple of seconds for it to get up to speed, and then it takes a couple of seconds for it to slow down. It doesn't instantly go from fast to slow, which is great. And on some keyboards back in the day, you had something similar, and it was tied to the modulation wheel, so you could increase the speed and decrease the speed with the modulation wheel. Well, on a real Hammond, it's not even variable. It's just fast or slow, which they've got absolutely right here. So that's that. Then the Tricomp is the other one that looks really, really cool and sophisticated and different. I really quite like the look of this. It's not really a plugin I use a whole lot, but I tell you what, the look is so attractive. I probably will use this a lot more now. Okay, so let's go over to the Pro EQ, and I can show you some of the things that are improved here. Well, for a start, we've got this low cut, I think is what they're calling it, which is like a phase linear low cut. And it's at three locations, so you got 20 hertz, 50, and 80, which is fixed. And you can either have it soft or not soft, basically. So this is a new addition. You also have an input meter as well as the output meter now, which is great. And the other thing you have is you've got 12th octave view. So when you're viewing a particular channel, let's go and solo this guy, and we'll mute this guy as well. This is in 12th octave view, so basically you're seeing every frequency attached to it, effectively a piano note, so to speak. But you can have it in traditional 3rd octave if you want. Or waterfall. Or if you don't like that view, you can turn it off. I quite like having it in this nice little 12th octave view. And of course you have sidechain capability for the EQ, which is also very, very cool. And you can sidechain it to any of these inputs that you have available. So that's the Pro EQ, which is really exciting about the Pro EQ. But we'll also go take a look at the compressor as well. Let's see where I'll put that. I'll put this over here. So compressors had a shake-up as well. In fact, all of the native effects have had a bit of a facelift. So they all look, to my opinion, they look a lot better than they did before. But yeah, so you've got an input and an output meter on the compressor as well now. And you have a sidechain filter. The filter is applicable to both internal sidechain for de-essing and that kind of thing, and these external sidechains with, say, the guitar or the Rhodes or whatever. So you can set up like a low-cut filter for the sidechain externally as well, which is very cool. And of course, you've got the auto gain and for input and makeup, which is cool that they've put this in its own position now, and then they've separated out the envelope, so the attack and release works really, really well now. So that is definitely worth checking out. And as I say, the header is very, very cool. Now, the other cool thing is in the appearance section. So if I go to Studio One options, and if I go to general and appearance, you now have some further customizations added here. You can have all your native plugins colored, or you can have them in light mode or in dark mode. And the same with the score view. You can have score view light or dark. So if I were to set this on light view and apply and go OK, and then go back and open the compressor, it looks a little bit different. The EQ rather, it looks a little bit different. Let's go back and change that to dark, and we'll apply and OK that. And you get this nice little dark mode, which means all of these kind of buttons stand out just a little bit more. So if you kind of like this dark look, you'll get a kick out of that, I'm sure. Personally, for me, I quite like it on the colored option. So if I go back and I go to colored and apply that in OK, and that means that all of these other plugins that have the special colorings, like not necessarily that one, but the analog delay, will look really, really cool. All right, so that's the effects and how they've been improved, and all the effects just sound a lot better as well. So let's get on to the one that I'm saving for last, which I think you're going to get a real kick out of, and I'm going to open it up over here. Here we go. All right, so here we are in the brand new show page for Studio One 5, and this is pretty awesome, I can tell you that right now. Now, there is a lot to unpack here, and I will be doing a separate, much more detailed video on the show page specifically, because it really does demand a video all of its own. So what I'm going to show you here is barely scratching the surface, and is just going to skim over the details and give you a broad overview, like most of the rest of this video has just been giving you an overview. And the idea of this whole video really is just so that you can go and explore these things for yourself. So take a look. This is the ideal, or kind of a mock-up ideal show setup. And what I have here is I have a backing track with some songs already placed in. There's space for some other songs here as well, with these titles here. And you basically drag and drop all of this stuff in, and I'm going to show you how to do that in just a moment. But basically, this is how it looks. You have your set list over on the left-hand side, and down the bottom, you have all the player information for each item in your set list. So my first song here is Chanel. It gives me the start point and the length and the tempo of the song, and then there's this pause thing here. And what this pause thing does is it gives you some time between each one of the songs so that you can engage with your audience, or you can go straight on into the next song if you want to. And then you've got this playback mode here that says stop at end. So basically Studio One will stop at the end of this song, as I have it at the moment, or I can have continue, or I can have loop, basically to go back over the song again if we decide that we're going to just play the whole song again, because everybody loves it so much. Let's just do the song again. Everybody loves it. So you can either stop the song at the end, or you can continue on into the next one. And then you've got a little pause gap where you can engage with your audience, and you can tell the audience about the next song as it starts, and the time signature, and where applicable, you can also put in the key signature here as well. And then moving over here, this is your players section. And what are players? Players are all the necessary elements for each song, for each performer. And one of the performers would be your backing track. And so we have a dedicated channel for the backing track, which is an audio track here. And then we have a virtual instrument here. Let's say I decide I'm going to take my keyboard, and I want my keyboard to play the really wonderful sounds that are in Presence XT. And I've got a few pulled up here. And as you can see, we can have a different patch available from Presence for each song, and they automatically change, which is the cool part. So Mr. or Miss or Mrs. keyboard player can sit at their keyboard, and the next song, it automatically calls up the next patch setting for the next song. And then I have a vocal channel here, an aux, and an aux for a saxophone. This could be a guitar. So you could have like guitar, piano, and backing tracks with vocals, maybe 2 vocal channels. You can set it up pretty much however you want with as many players as you require. And each one can have their own setup. So you can have your own EQ, your own compression settings, and your own reverb settings. And again, they are all drag and drop from the browser, or you can drag in an effects chain. And when you do that, you might decide that you want to have a different effects chain for each song. And you can do that. So here I've got Lips Vox, which is one that I made myself. And then I've got this preset one called Male Live, and I'm switching between them. And then I've got this one at the end for the last song, which is My Funny Valentine, which is one of my favorite Rodgers and Hammerstein ballads of all time. And so we've gone for a nice dreamy one with a big fat reverb on it. And we've muted the backing track because this time I'm going to be accompanied by my keyboard player, who's going to be playing the big string section sustain from the Presonus Symphonic Orchestra. So we're going for that nice orchestral sound with a little bit of saxophone obbligato. And the sax player has their own settings all the way through, their own EQ and compressor, as you can see, and reverb settings there. When you drag a patch on, it automatically assumes that it's going to be the same settings for the whole show. But as I said, you can change it by just dragging a new effects chain or a new set of effects, and you can drag effects chains from different songs. Let's say you have rehearsed all of these songs and you've been working on them in Studio One, or you have the record that you made that you're going to gig, and you've done the whole record in Studio One, and you want to use all of those studio settings from those individual songs on the stage using the show page. You can do that. You can bring in all of your effects chains by copy and paste into the show page. It's fantastic. And as I said, I will go all over all of those details in my separate video for the show page, which I hope you will get a lot out of. But this is kind of how it looks when you've got your show pretty much there or thereabouts set up. So let's go and have a look at how a little bit you can set this up. So in this case here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a backing track player, and I'm going to drag these files in here because this is my EP belonging to tomorrow. And let's say I want to just gig the whole EP. And I can do that. And let's say it's just a solo show. So I'm going to be doing the backing tracks from the EP, and I'm going to sing, and I'm going to play some keyboards as well. So we'll set that up. So the first thing I need to do is get the backing track in here. So we'll call this backing. And we can change the color. It doesn't have to be this, garish color. Let's make it that color, like that. And the preset will be no preset, and the output will be main. And then we'll hit OK. And now that's all set. There's no effects on this at all, as we'll be able to see from the mixer. If we open the mixer, and I'm going to close that and that, because I don't want to see those. And I can expand this up so that I've got a little bit more real estate. And so what I can do is I can drag each one of these tunes in. So let's go with Chanel to start with. And then let's go with Flying High. Hang on, that didn't drag. Hang on a second. Oops, I put that in the wrong place. But that's fine. I can mute that. Oh, hang on, I need to remove this. Let's delete that. And let's try that again, and we'll drag it into the right one. There you go. Now you've actually seen. And did you notice how this little song here actually expanded to fit the length of this song, which is perfect, which is what we want. And then we'll bring in Belonging to Tomorrow, the title track. And then we'll bring in Paper Deity. And then the last one we will do will be Counting the Days. So there's our show, and all of the backing tracks are in. So what I need to do now is I want to set up a keyboard track, I think. So I will go for my virtual, and for the most part, I would probably want to play a Fender Rhodes or a Wurlitzer kind of thing. So we'll call this keys. And we'll change the color. You can auto color this if you really want to. We'll make it that color. And we'll go new instrument. We'll go input any, and we'll go presence because that's going to be what we want to use. And we'll go OK, just like that. It's dead simple. And then I can go to the instrument and I can open it up. And I can go into here and I can go keyboards. And for the most part, I would maybe want the Rhodes Mark I. And we'll go with this one. And then I'll close that. So when you have created your patch in Presence XT over here, and I've created it's the Roseful vintage that I want, I then need to click the plus sign and save it. And now that that is saved, now it defaults to having that right across the board for most of the songs. But let's say in Belonging to Tomorrow, I actually want to have a piano, just a regular piano. I can click on this again and I can change this and I can go to, let's see, let's close that up. Let's go to piano and let's go to piano full. And then we'll close that and then we'll add that and we'll go acoustic piano full. Perfect. So we know that for most of the songs we want the Rhodes. So we'll select the Rhodes across the board. But this one, we want to have the piano. And paper data, we want to be back on the Rhodes. And counting the days, we also want to be on the Rhodes. So that's nice and easy. So I've now got my backing track and my keys. And now I need to add one more player. And this is going to be a real instrument. And this is going to be my vocal channel. So we want to call this Vox. And we'll change the color to that color there. And we'll go for a preset, not drums, not bass. So let's close those up. We will go for vocals. And we'll go for Lips Vox, because that's my little preset. And we'll go for input left. The output will be the main. And we'll go OK on there. And I need to mute that so that you don't get doubling going on. So now that we've done that, we can now hit the plus sign like we did earlier. And we can go OK. And for the most part, this is the one I'm going to use for pretty much most of these songs. Except for this one, I'm probably going to use a different one for Belonging to Tomorrow. And that's just as fine as well, because I can go back to my effects. I can go back to my vocal effects chains. And let's say I want to go for this dreamy one for Belonging to Tomorrow, because it's a little bit more of a floaty kind of song. So we'll drag that one onto our player here, and then we'll hit the plus sign and we'll go OK. And then I can assign that one to there like that. And then I can go back to Lips Vox for the rest of the song, the rest of the show. So there we have it. We have my piano settings and my vocal settings, and I could go out and play my gig just as is. Now let's say I decide I want to do one extra song, which will be the encore. And that's dead easy to do, but I don't have the backing track for that here in this show. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save the show so we don't mess it up. So at this point, I'm going to go back to my song page. And I've got my song, Dig Myself a Hole, which I released earlier this year. And what we're going to do is we're going to mix down a backing track which can be sent over directly to my show, and I can add it straight into that show, and then I can just move it around to wherever I want it to be in the set list. So let's do that. Let's go to the song, and then let's go to add to show, and we'll go to demo show. And there it is. It appears as song number 6, which is what I wanted. And there it is. Dig myself a hole, except it goes dig ... hole. But that's fine. I don't mind that. And so I think I will use I use the Rhodes there, and we'll use Lips Vox there as well. And that's my show. That's my gig. So I've got my 5 songs and I've got my encore all queued up. And I can decide whether I continue on into songs or whether I stop and have a little bit of banter before the next song starts. So I'm all set. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to take this out to my little corner cafe where I'm going to set myself up and play my show. This is perfect. So what do I do now? Well, let's stay here in this show page. And what we're going to do, let's say we are all set up. We're at the cafe and everybody is sat at their, as it is with 2020 coronavirus world that we live in, everybody is sat at their socially distanced tables to enjoy my show. And because it is coronavirus, I'm playing a solo gig rather than with my regular 12-piece funk soul band. So this is what I would do now. I'm set, I'm ready, I have my laptop, I have my interface, and we're running that out into the PA. Everything is ready to go. Then what I would do is I'd hit this button at the top here that says perform. And now I'm all ready to go. Now this section here, where you have these knobs and faders, these are all assignable through control link through UCNet to a fade. You can connect those to a fader port or something like that, like a fader port 8 or a fader port 16. I don't have one of those devices, but if I were to have one of those devices, I could assign the faders on the fader ports to each one of my 6 songs, and I could make sure I've got the balances set, or I could assign these faders to my channels in the show page, because this is like the perform page part of the show page, if you like. And I can assign all of these, and I can assign these buttons as well, which is very, very cool. And then what I can do is I can start myself at the top of the show. All of my patches, I can view any of my players. So the backing, my keys, there are my patches for my keys. If I go to my vocals, there's my patches for my vocals. And as you see, as I scroll through each one, see how the patches changed. There we go. And so we know that's what was meant to happen with the vocal. Let's check out the keys just quickly. And it's on belonging to tomorrow that it changes to piano, and then it goes back. And it's like that for the rest of the show. And so there you have it. And pretty much you can just hit play and let this go until you get to the end of the show. But it's always good to kind of set up those little pauses back in the main show page, and you can do that by clicking out of here, and you can go back and you can go and change all of these playback modes to continue or stop at the end, and you can set up your pause times there as I showed. So there you go. That is the show page, and that is Studio One 5. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. It was a quick overview of everything that is involved in Studio One 5. There are over 60 or so features for you guys to go and check out. So I recommend that if you are wanting to upgrade, you go and upgrade as soon as possible. But one thing I always say to everybody who is going, yeah, here's my credit card, take my money. Hold your horses just for a minute. If you're still working on a project that is time sensitive and you have deadlines, don't rush. Studio One 5 will still be here waiting for you. When you've finished that project, then you can go and upgrade. It is never a good thing, in my personal opinion, to upgrade to a brand new version of a DAW in the middle of working on something that is deadline sensitive, because if something does go wrong, and sometimes things do go wrong, and sometimes you're in unfamiliar territory, you're learning new features that you've not learned before, and you don't know how to navigate your way around it, it takes a little bit longer to get used to, and you can trip over yourself, and you can end up in a tangle, and then of course you're under a lot more pressure with your deadline. I don't advise that. But anyway, with that piece of wisdom handed out to you free of charge, please do subscribe to my channel. I have a lot more Studio One 5 content coming out. I am basically giving over my Sunday night live shows, which happen at 6 p.m. Central every Sunday. I'm going to be giving them over to Studio One 5 and also to the brand new PreSonus Sphere, which was also launched today. Which I have also had the pleasure of being able to check out and test and enjoy ahead of time, so that you guys know what is coming and what is available to you. So I have a video dedicated to the Sphere on my channel as well. You will see that. So once you finish watching this video, that video will be there shortly. It's not uploaded yet, but it will be very, very shortly. So keep an eye on the channel. hit the notification bell and make sure when you do to check the option for all notifications. That way you know about all of my videos and my live streams, so you can come along and get involved and ask your questions. And, you know, believe me, with all of this new stuff with Studio One 5 and with the Persona Sphere, you're probably going to have a lot of questions, and I will do my very best on these live streams, which are about an hour long every Sunday, to help you and answer your questions. So until then, folks, bye for now.